Israel says its military has killed Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar in southern Gaza. The Defense Force claims he planned and executed the October 7th attack, which killed around 1,200 Israelis. Over 200 more were abducted. A radio station run by the IDF says Yahya's body was spotted in the rubble of a building struck by an Israeli tank. DNA and dental records were reportedly used to confirm his identity. Staying with the worsening situation in the Middle East, President Cyril Ramaphosa has reaffirmed the country's support for the people of Palestine. Pretoria says it will submit new evidence to the International Court of Justice as part of its legal bid to hold Israel responsible for its deadly attacks in Gaza. But question is, are these continued efforts by South Africa helping? Well, here to answer these questions and others related to it, I'm joined by University of Johannesburg Professor of Politics and International Relations, Siphamandla Zondi. Professor Zondi, good evening to you, and thank you very much for your time. Can I begin this conversation with the latest coming out of the Middle East, and that's Israel, its military, claiming that yet another of the senior leaders of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar, has been killed. If indeed, pardon me, that is the case, how weakened is Hamas, given that Ismail Haniyeh was also executed or assassinated not so long ago?
Good evening, Cody, and good evening to the viewers. Yes, indeed, they're getting conflicting reports because Hamas has denied it. And then, of course, Israel is claiming that it has been able to kill another one of the Hamas leaders. Of course, for Israel and the state of Israel, in their inability to rescue the hostages and in their inability to win the war, at least they should be able to say their assassination strategy is helping. It's killing as many of the Hamas leaders as it's possible. And it has to do that. It's under pressure to do so because they spent millions worth of equipment destroying the whole of Gaza, but has been unable to really defeat Hamas in any clear way.
Yeah.
Partly because Hamas is embedded in population, it's a resistant movement, it's a guerrilla movement. It's very hard to defeat via conventional arms. So now the war moves from the physical war to actions that are meant to drive perceptions, or what you might call propaganda. And I can understand why Israel has to do so, because it has to justify the huge costs it has incurred in this war.
Let's come back to questions, therefore, surrounding South Africa's effort in trying to, I guess, achieve a ceasefire, because I think that was the initial effort by going to the International Criminal Court. They're saying this time around that they plan to submit new evidence to the ICJ as part of its legal bid to hold Israel responsible for its deadly attacks in Gaza. Firstly, how helpful are South Africa's efforts in the ICJ for the people of Palestine?
Yes, there are two things different countries of the world are doing. About 50 countries enabling Israel to attack more and more, and therefore kill more and more citizens in Gaza. And they too are saying that doing that with the people of Gaza in mind. They're trying to rescue them from Hamas control, as they put it. And in the process, they are killing them. Over 20,000 of them, including children, have been killed. Then there is another, which is generally a global South approach, championed by developing countries, including African countries, which is to say you have to find efforts to end the war and end the military strategy and push things towards a more civilized way of ending any conflict, which is negotiations, talks that should lead to some form of agreement that can then be guaranteed by the international community as a whole. And therefore, South Africa's efforts are assisting that cause, the peace cause. They may not be assisting the war cause, which the other side is going for. But historically, the Global South has always been for a more peaceful end to conflict and sparing people, especially civilians, from more mayhem and than they have done now. So it is actually putting Israel under pressure. It also puts many countries behind Israel under a serious moral spotlight, because these are countries that have branded themselves as countries of good morals, as democrats, as countries looking for wise values. And in this case, they find themselves on the wrong side because they find themselves among those who support genocides, who support willy-nilly killing of civilians, who support a complete destruction of a whole population in order to punish a few people.
Yeah. Professor, I'm asking you this question on the back of what is happening there right now, to say South Africans, will they likely be justified if they start asking questions of their own government in this ICJ effort to say, is this not money going to waste, given the state of the Israeli government that appears to be ignoring everybody else, including its own allies? The recent information, Professor, coming out suggests, or at least recent reports, suggest that the countries that have been supporting Israel in this war effort are now asking questions of it relating to whether Israel, the Israeli government, has a policy of withholding food or possibly using food as a weapon of war in order for the people of Gaza to not gain access to the aid that they so desperately need. This is the basically blocking of trucks from entering Gaza. And so these are Israel's own allies, including the United States, that are now asking this question, that is the government possibly implementing some kind of policy that says, let's use food as a weapon of war in order to starve the people of Gaza. Add to that the other element where Israel has been reportedly, they have been reportedly blocking, or rather attacking, the UN peacekeepers on the Lebanon-Israel border. And this again goes against international rules. These are UN peacekeepers who are saying they're coming under attack by Israel. All I'm saying here, Professor, I'm trying to paint a picture to you that says Israel seems to be a law unto itself. And if South Africa is continuing with this effort, is this not money gone to waste?
I think if you look at it in terms of practically causing Israel to stop its genocidal war, or to cause Israel to act a little bit more like a moral force, causing Israel to think a little bit more about the humanitarian crisis, and Israel to think a little bit more about how much damage it causes to its own image as a country, and how much isolation it is causing to itself, as we see at the United Nations, when Benjamin Netanyahu was to speak, and the hall was almost empty, and everybody walked out because they couldn't stomach what is being done, and the disregard that you are referring to all manner of appeals to international law, to the UN Charter, And moving from ignoring the UN to attacking the UN, completely unheard of, really a rogue, has now entered our race. Now, what happens when you allow a rogue, when you allow a monster to have a free reign and without any form of question there? They become even more boasted. You don't know where they will end. You don't know which other country they will bomb.
Yeah.
So it's always correct to raise moral argument. It's always correct to use the current and existing instruments of international law in order to get Israel back onto track and save it from itself, save Israel from its own government. I think it's correct. Even if it does not lead to Israel ending a war, you don't judge moral fights by physical change. You register a particular point of view that over a passage of time will be found to have been correct. It's better for us to stand on the right side of values, right side of principles, and maybe lose than to have no principle and still lose.
All right. Professor Siphamandla Zondi, thank you very much for your time and insight tonight. The Johannesburg Professor of Politics and International Relations.